So when you say government has no business in business, it's not true. When you say government should not defend the naira, there is no part in this, there's no country in this world where the government do not defend their currency. No, silver price went up. What, like times 3 price of yam? Guess what? In next year, the men said no, we have to see 2 million members.
2 million
Plus.
Wow.
Database statistics, their names,
Verifiable human beings. Welcome to Development Now. Of course, DevNow, if you like. And I'm always excited, to do this introduction. My body is hot, not in a good way. My blood is hot. I'm excited. My children are excited. All of us are excited. And of course, for another exciting episode of Development Now. Last week was a blast. Today will be blaster.
Be an explosion.
Yeah. So today, Development Now, for those who are plugging in for the very first time, is a 360-degree media platform. We seek to amplify the success stories of development agencies in Nigeria. Now, they do so much in different spaces, whether it's healthcare, education, civic space, environment, where you have climate change, and what have you, all right? And we realize that it's not being showcased as much as possible. These programs, these success stories are being put together to make Nigeria a better place, a by far better place. And so on Development Now, we bring in these implementers and they get to tell us about these programs, these stories, the challenges, the ups, the downs, and everything. So when I say development sector, I'll keep drumming this in till every one of us gets it. When we say development sector, those people you refer to as those NGO people, those CSO people, they form the development sector, right? So without much further ado, my name is Bumi Afolabi. Some know me as Mr. Speaker. These days, people have started calling me Mr. Development. Well, it's all good. And this is DevNow. I'm not alone as always. I have the beautiful, the delectable, the yellow pawpaw, Ogona Uwajimogu.
Welcome to another exciting edition of DevNow. I'm sure you've been enjoying all the episodes we have put out so far. I hope you're inspired. I hope you are ready to get challenged to join us, because how do you support these NGOs is by actually watching, okay, and helping your community develop as we go. Thank you so much for all the plays. Keep listening, keep sharing, and of course, keep helping us develop our nation, Nigeria.
That's right. Today, of course, like you might have noticed, we have a guest. The seat in the middle is never empty. If it's empty, what we call it won't be dev now. Maybe the E will be missing.
It will just be a conversation between two people who don't work for any organization. We'll just be chatting.
All right. So we are privileged to have the country director of ActionAid Nigeria in the person of Andrew Mamedu. And that's the person you see on the seat there. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Bumi.
All right.
Thank you.
So, ActionAid, I'll just give you a brief about ActionAid. Myself and Ogona will give you a brief about ActionAid. ActionAid is a global movement. So, ActionAid is not a local NGO. That's why you heard me say ActionAid Nigeria, to be specific, that he runs the operations in Nigeria, right? So, ActionAid is a global movement of people working together to further human rights for all and defeat poverty. Uppercut, poverty. They prioritize works with the poor and excluded, promoting values and commitment in civil society, institutions, and governments, with the aim of achieving structural changes to eradicate injustices and poverty in the world.
ActionAid Nigeria is a member of ActionAid Global Federation. Just like Bumi says, this is their Nigerian organization, their Nigerian county. They maintain a strong relationship of interdependence and mutual accountability within the International Federation, while ensuring a strong balance between self-rule and shared rule. Registered in Nigeria in 1999, just when Bumi turned 30, as a country program of ActionAid.
Stray bullets. Go on, ActionAid, go on. Straight bullets.
As a country program of ActionAid International, they have transformed into an autonomous national organization with a strong national governance structure, a board and a general assembly consisting of reputable Nigerians providing strategic oversight. I mean, that is amazing.
It's a lot, right?
What have you done for your country?
We created DevNow. Say
Okay.
That one entered.
Sorry.
Ask me another thing.
Yeah.
All right. So without much further ado, of course, we have the country director here, and we're going to jump straight into the questions because we want to get into the world of ActionAid. We want to explore. All right. So we've given a brief about ActionAid. That's the much we know. But tell us more about ActionAid. Some exciting facts. I mean, the things that make you jump up from bed in the morning and say, I'm going to work. Yeah, some exciting facts, details about the organization. You could throw in some reasons why it was founded. I know we've talked about it on paper, but you could go deeper. Strategy, focus, driving force,
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to DevNow. Great initiative you're doing here.
Thank you.
And we're hoping that more Nigerians tune into this and we get an expanded view contributing to development of the country. ActionAid started in 1999. We had a country director that was recruited from UK, Charles Abani, and he had just $200, and as he would say then, he had £200 in his wallet, and that's what he came with to Nigeria to start the program.
Wow.
And from there, some of the bills were picked up, the rents and all of those were picked up. Started engagements, started work in education, in health, started getting funding, started getting support from the international. And from there, they say from there till now, the rest they say is history.
Yeah.
We've been able to transition from being a baby. So ActionAid Nigeria was a baby of ActionAid UK.
Yeah.
So Charles Abani was recruited. Charles Abani, by the way, is the resident coordinator currently in the UN in Ghana.
Okay.
And he was recruited to come set up ActionAid Nigeria from the UK. Coming to Nigeria, he did his best for 3 years, 4 years. We had a transition. And within the lifespan of the second country director, we started a process of transitioning ActionAid from being an international organization to being a local organization.
Yeah.
There were a whole lot of process that were involved in that. So being an international organization meant that most of the high-level decisions would be taken by ActionAid UK or ActionAid International. All your reportings, everything goes through ActionAid International or ActionAid UK. Then ActionAid UK was our the one that set us up. So in the transition, a couple of things. We needed to register with CAC. We needed to have strong governance system, strong accountability. So there are so many things you might say about some NGOs, particularly organizations like ActionAid. So accountability was topmost on our list. The reason is, if you are going to be working in a place like Nigeria where accountability is a major issue, and you're going to be holding government accountable, you as an organization, you needed to be held accountable.
So I
don't throw some dirt on you.
Then of course, like I say, the tax office, they practically give us certificate all the time. They recognize and say, "Oh, you guys are doing well. We pay 100%. If you see my tax bill, you will cry.
Wow.
We pay 100%. So there's nothing like pay out of payroll. You put everything on the table and you tax it, and that gives us
peace of mind.
No, that gives us the temerity
to be able to say
to hold government accountable.
Collect.
So we are paying tax. So we're not evading tax. So when we are asking questions, that's one of the justifications we're using. So we set up a governance system. Actually, 2 levels of governance system. So we have a board, made up of about 13%, eminent Nigerians, of course, and of course we have a general assembly. Now these then are now when we transition, these are now the owners of ActionAid. So we're registered locally. So I get paid in Naira, I don't get paid in pounds. So
Just so you know, we get paid in naira.
So we all get paid in naira, right? So we then had to recruit. Of course, all our staff are local. You might have one or two foreign staff, but they also get paid in naira. We don't have international staff. The international staff we have maybe on secondment from other countries to learn or to support one or two things, basically. And then so with that transition completed, we became a member of the federation. We then became PAL with ActionAid UK. So within the federation is like a federal structure. Like in Nigeria does not practice a full federal structure. Like in the US, where states have their own laws and policies.
They are quite autonomous.
Yeah, so you have things that are in the exclusive list, but a lot of things are within the concurrent list and the residual list. So we have a lot of things. So decision making. So I don't have to call UK to take decision. I don't have to call international to take decision on a day-to-day basis. So I can go meet a minister today, have a meeting, and get approval for all the things I need to do. All I need to do is get my senior management team to sign off if need be. There's a difference between governance and management. So we try to have that distinction. So there are governance issues. So for instance, I cannot set my salary. So the board has to set my salary. I cannot approve policy. So when I say management cannot approve policy, so once the board approves the policy, in terms of operationalization, it's now management. So board cannot now come and interfere and tell us how to run the organization. No, but it has been approved in the policy. We're just guided by the policy, and the board makes sure that we are within the policy framework in our operation. And we meet the board meets quarterly to look at these issues. And when we are meeting with the board, it is a real rigorous process. They ask us strong questions, critical questions that make sure, because imagine your name is at stake. And the truth is, the way ActionAid functions, I wish Nigerian functions like that, Nigerian government functions like that. When we recruit the board members, they're like, oh, you're doing us a favor. No, they're not doing you a favor. So we do a rigorous induction and make them know you are the owner of the organization. And after 2 years, the way he transformed, the way they start asking you questions like, well, I sat in this guy's panel that interviewed him and brought him on board as a board member. But we'll be asking you some strong critical questions. And for instance, we once had a case of fraud with one of our partners. We had this project that had over 100 plus partners. And so we had a fraud with one of the partners. And the organization was practically ActionAid now was practically investigated for about 2-3 months, a whole rigorous process of investigation, just because of, and the fraud was not more than ₦1 million. It was a big deal. So it was about how did this pass through our system, how did this was not noticed and all that, and how did we make sure, what lesson are we learning from it to make sure it's not about just that 1 million, it's about how do we make sure that this does not happen again. So that is about the organization ActionAid. Now, coming back to the mission side of work, the level of poverty in the country, of course, has been enormous. People say it's been worsening since then, but in some cases, people say no, it's not been worsening. Things have been changing. That standard of living have changed. People, but various schools of thought. But for us, whether then or now, the level of poverty has been very, very worrisome. That has made organizations like ActionAid to say no, we've got to interfere, we've got to intervene, and we've got to look at how do we right this wrong. Is it a wrong thing? Can you imagine, Bumi, where a child that is supposed to be in school? I remember those days when I was working in northern Nigeria with ActionAid on education, and we had 20 naira keeping children out of school. PTA levy of 20 naira keeping children out of school. And it's all boils back to poverty. It all boils back to our policy implementation. When we say education is free, 20 naira.
Not dollars.
No, 20 naira.
I hope, like, you realize that 20 naira cannot buy this bottle of water.
No, you can't.
So basically, something that costs less than a bottle of water.
So
it's keeping a child
out of school. Not just a child, children out of school. But that particular child, I remember that lady. I interviewed her family and I met her, Fatima, very well. Her picture is still vivid in my mind. And of course, I was forced to pay the money, but that was not the solution. So how many would you pay? then how many would you pay? So, but it's a structural, it's a systemic thing. When we say education is free, I was in a meeting last week with government officials within the education space, and we're discussing education is supposed to be free and compulsory. When you say free, it's actually free. How free is free? Free means free. Free means 0 naira. Means that. So we're even debating that if you say it's free, that means that if I have to even anything that has to cost me money, that'll make me not come to school, the government will be responsible for it. Yeah. So even my uniform, if I have to wear uniform, so there are countries where there are places where students don't have to wear uniform. Yeah. But because if they have to wear uniform at that level, at primary and secondary level, then the government will provide it because it's free. Anything that's supposed to is free. Textbooks, writing materials, all of those. But here we see them. Oh, you have to bring broom, you have to bring chalk, you have to bring all sorts and all that. So those kind of things. Then if you go to the health sector, women are every day dying from childbirth.
From childbirth, yeah.
Things as simple as childbirth.
Yeah.
And we just count them as statistics. Oh, another person is gone. They're like, maternal mortality is this rate. But these are figures of persons. These are real human beings. Yeah. And that is what development is. So when we say development, what is it about? It's about real human beings, about you and I. So ActionAid, we looked at it and we're like, okay, what do we do? What would be our response strategy? Our response was to go work from the rural community. I remember one particular community we went to in Nasarawa State, Egon Hills. We were working in that community. When we went there, they were practically naked, so just wear things Egon. Like that. Yeah. So we went there. We were working in the community, and one time we took some journalists, some media persons there
to go with you.
And one of the headline read, "ActionAid discovers a community," the same way Mango Park discovered.
Oh, wow. Or the same way Columbus
discovered River Niger. Mango Park came from Europe to come and discover River Niger for us. So very interesting. So the heading was ActionAid discovers a community and all that. But clearly, you could see the challenge, the problem in that particular community. So you see people practically suffering. You could see the level of poverty and injustice. In the same vein, you go to places like Victoria Island, you go to places like Asokoro and Maitama, you go to GRAs across the various states, and you see highbrow properties, highbrow building. You see people living big life. You see parties being thrown left, right, center. We are not against those. What we are saying is people should have the basic minimum. So does Nigeria, so when in your introduction, we believe that poverty can be eradicated. Now there are countries that have moved their poverty in the monetary poverty level away from $1.80 or $2 if you want to say. Some of them have moved it to $3. Right? Yeah. So some countries have moved it to $3. And at that $3, they are almost 0.something% of their population. So, but at $1.8, which is like the global figure, global standard, nobody's living in poverty. None, no one. So there are countries that don't have poverty. They've dealt with that basic minimum.
Although, sorry to take the one of you.
Are these countries socialist countries?
No, they are not. They're not.
Yeah, the other question I was going to ask is, someone would say in comparison with Nigeria's population.
Yes, that's true.
You may not need to mention the countries if you don't want to.
No, I will mention
if
them.
you want to, but someone will want to
so
argue.
Norway is number one. Check the poverty rate in Norway, right? Yeah. So the thing is, population is relative, right? If you pick our population, pick our resources. Yeah. Now these countries do not have the amount of resources that we have. No, China, at one swift, moved 300 million people within 2 years out of poverty. One swift.
China.
So I'm now going to countries that have way more population than us. India moved 200 and something million people out of poverty within 3 years.
Sorry, I'd like to interject.
Yes, please.
In Nigeria, I'm sure you're familiar with this, Bumi. every quarter or so, you hear of some poverty alleviation scheme, each state government or federal government, or some loan, or some, what's that one that, was it the 5,000 naira that was meant to be given to each household, or some conditional cash transfers? We hear of so many. Why do you think? Because clearly it's not working as it should. Why is that?
Okay, so these are a couple of things here. The first thing is, maybe we need to better understand development.
Okay.
I want to say the government needs to better understand development. Does it mean that experts in government they do? But the first thing you need to do is you need to understand the root cause of poverty. Right? If you do not understand the root cause of poverty, you probably be treating these symptoms.
What is the root cause of poverty?
Perfect. So I'll come to that. Well, let me start with the 5,000. So those are palliatives. Palliatives are allowed, but they are stopgap measures.
Okay.
They do not deal with the root cause of poverty. Now, what is the root cause of poverty? So the root cause of poverty is injustice and inequality. Now, the policies and systems and structures you put in place are not able to deal with those systemic issues. So when you say inequality, you do a recent policy, yes, band A, band power electricity. Yes. So you do a
tariff increase,
yeah. Right? Band A, band B,
to
band C. Now the question is, in places where you have data, even within the band A, there might be poor persons that are there.
Yeah.
Right? There might be people that are living there that are poor. So there might be people that are squatting. There are people that are trying to transition from one job to the other, or trying to get a job.
Even domestic staff, does that count?
Domestic staff. So people that are living there, right? And it's not as straightforward as this location. Once you are here, you are a band A person.
Yeah.
Now that is one end. The other end is there are businesses in this band A. So if you increase tariff in this business premises, for instance, beyond a particular limit, a couple of things would happen naturally. The person would try and pay. If the person is not able to pay, if the business is not able to pay, how will the person respond? Other areas will suffer. And one of the areas that normally suffer is staff salary. So staff will now be, we cannot pay now. Hold on, let's try. Because you must operate. You need lights. Of course, you cannot do this without lights.
Yeah.
You need light. That's one. And you cannot say you will then say, you go off grid. It's way more expensive, right?
It's a lot.
That is why we have government. So government has just two responsibilities. Only two things. That's what that's the purpose of government. Two things. One, protection of life and property, and the welfare of citizens. Those are the only two responsibilities of government. So if government is able to play that role actively, then all of these issues will be dealt with. So if you do that, then the owner of the business then says, I'm not able to. You cut down on staff. Job losses. You are putting more people on the streets.
Yeah.
Right? The recent CBN increase in interest rates. Yeah, in some it has positive, so there are trade-offs, right? But in those analyses, so what happens is, in these trade-offs, you say, there's so much money in circulation. That's why we have inflation, right? So if we have inflation as high as almost 32%, right? And you want to cut down inflation, so because there's so much money in circulation, let's increase interest rate. Once you increase interest rate, people will be forced to save their money and reduce the money in circulation. Basically, it will also affect the forex, which is already affecting the forex, which is good, positive. But there are businesses that need to take loan, small and medium scale businesses that need to take loan. So the policy around how do you respond to these businesses? How do you then make provision? You recognize that yes, on one hand, there's so much money in circulation. The question is, where is the money? Whose hand? Is it in your hand, Bumi?
Definitely.
It looks like it's in your hand. It looks like it's in your hand.
Inshallah. I pray it's in my hands. It will come to my hands. I'm not like people that say no. In Jesus' name,
it will come to your hands, right? So it's to recognize where is the money, whose hand does this money lie, and if we are throwing out policies, what measures do we put in place to make sure that SMEs are able to still survive? How do we create special loan for SMEs to still be able to do one digit?
Yeah.
It's funny. I got a text message from my bank saying, your one of my accounts saying, "Oh, your savings account, you can now enjoy 6 point something percent." And I called one of the bank officers, account officer. Please, I want to take loan. How much is it? He said 24%. Doesn't make sense. So you're offering me 6%. Then I want to take loan. Then I will not pay 24%. So does it make? It doesn't correlate. So the difference is so much,
wide.
right? So these things naturally have a tendency, not tendency. They increase poverty. So you are throwing more people into poverty. So when you say, "Oh, we are closing our borders," so I'm picking practical policies now. So you say you're closing our borders. The response is, "Oh, you're closing our borders from importation of rice." It's a good thing. So our farmers should be able to produce rice or cement. It's a good thing. Dangote and Co should be able to. So those brands should be able to. It's a good thing. It should be able to generate more income for us in country. But you monitor the situation. So when you say government has no business in business, it's not true. When you say government should not defend the naira, there is no part in this. There's no country in this world where the government do not defend their currency.
Yeah.
None, from China to US that even have the US dollar, they defend their currency. So that is one of the functions of central bank. So you look at it vis-a-vis when 133 million persons are living in multi-dimensional poverty. Right? Yeah. So 133 million, so over 60%, 60-70% of your population is living in multi-dimensional poverty. What does it tell you? It means that majority of your population falls within that category. So your policies should naturally look at how would it affect this class. That is why for us, we have just one weakness as ActionAid. We don't forget about talking about ActionAid. That's what brought all these things.
Of course.
We have just one weakness. And our weakness is we are unapologetic. We are biased. We take side with the poor. So when we are analyzing policies, those are the things we look at. We look at, okay, how would this policy reflect on the poor eventually, now and eventually? So those are the things we look at. Those are the responses you see in our press releases and all of that. It's okay. Some people, it's okay. You can have millionaires, you can have billionaires. It's good.
I was going to ask, does ActionAid support the idea of billionaires? Because there's some people that believe billionaires should not exist.
You can have billionaires.
Okay.
But let the basic minimum first be met.
Okay.
We don't have a problem with having billionaires, but the billionaires should not come at the expense. It's an issue of equity. Equity leads to equality. We're not promoting a communist system where everybody belongs to the same class or similar class. No, that's not what we're promoting. But it's an issue of equity. So those that are down there and those that are high up here, how do you bridge the gap? There's a basic minimum. So if this is the basic minimum, if everybody is here, then those that are up there, up to the sky, it's their business.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So
people should not have to suffer.
People should have, when we say it's poverty, it's just basic necessities. We're not saying people should have iPhone like us. That's not what we're saying. So people have access to food, people have access to healthcare, people have access to education, people have access to so all those basic things, when people have access to them, so you're sick, you have access to basic healthcare, you have access to housing. I was thinking recently, with the level of power that we have in the country, if Nigeria was in those cold region where having heaters in your house is a necessity,
it's not negotiable.
Yeah.
A lot of people would die.
Yeah, because AC you turn it on when you're hot and you can regulate it, but
when it gets
you're
too cold
throughout the entire day, you know.
Temperatures are at minus 7, minus 10, minus 12. You will freeze to death. Right? But clearly, because so the thing is, God has endowed Nigeria, and the resources we have, we're not able to utilize them. We have several advantages. So it has nothing to do with our population. That our population is high. That's why we have. It's simple. It's at a point where I think during Obasanjo's time, we're growing. Our GDP growth rate was at about 7%. Now the growth rates also looks at the issue of inequality as well. So the Gini coefficient of the haves and the have-not, the Gini coefficient, which is also high, the difference between the have and the have-not. Yes, we need to narrow that, right? But you could see that we're getting a bit more people out of poverty. But with this kind of, so those are the things that make ActionAid, those are things that wake me up every morning. So those are things that are exciting to us. There are whole things around, for instance, women's rights. We are strong and big on women's rights. You see a woman, and she might seem to have everything put together, but you see one man that is busy battering her every day. Every day. So we are against that. You see a man, a commissioner, and he thinks that because you are a secretary in his office, so he should sleep with you. So you objectify women, basically. So those kind of issues, we respond to them urgently. We deal with them because it's also a fundamental right. So for us, women has got same rights as well as men. We're not saying that women are more important. No. And why we focus on, so people do gender. We do gender in a way, but we will focus more on women's rights. The reason is simple. We've done our analysis, and the analysis shows that the gap between the male and the female is the women that are disadvantaged. So, and if you are dealing with issues of equity, you first of all help these guys. Like I cannot, for instance, start programming for billionaires, like the issue of poverty, right? The haves and the have-not. I'll program for those that are here. That's why we focus on these guys, right? So the same thing for men and women. We focus more on these guys. Are there men that are beaten by their wives? Yes, there are. Right? If they come, probably respond to them. But those are very limited.
They're not
right?
so many.
They're not so much. But you have more women that are passing through various kinds of violence and inequality. So women in leadership. How many women are in National Assembly? How many women are in the Senate? How many women are in House of Rep? We have never had a female governor.
Never.
We've
been
just
close to it.
We're close.
But it never happened.
Taraba.
Yeah. Taraba,
and it's not
And
happened. Also, Adamawa. Yes,
so they announced
we've
her as
always
the
been
winner,
close, just very close.
What's her name? The one in Anambra, Etiebe or something. Yeah. She was acted for a while, and of course, but we have never had an elected
female governor.
I like that you mentioned women in politics, and I'm about to deviate a little away from Nigeria because the problem now is in Gambia. If you can touch on this just a little, and this is about the FGM movement in Ghana right now. There's been an uproar. The House is trying to reverse the ban. So there was a ban that was placed in 2015. Right. So I'm about to read something from this article. It's just a very short one. It says, Gambia may soon become the first nation to reverse a ban against the practice of FGM. Gambia passed a law banning the practice in 2015, but the parliament is now moving to overturn the ban, arguing that such an effort is necessary to uphold religious loyalty and safeguard cultural norms and values. Now, this is where I want to pinpoint. It will now be reviewed by a parliamentary committee before a final vote. Of the 47 predominantly male members of the Gambia National Assembly present for the voting, 42 voted to overturn the ban. Aside things being the problem of maybe warped ideas, maybe misogyny, would this happen if there were more women in the parliament?
Yes and no. It depends on their level of enlightenment. So you will hear some women supporting this.
I heard.
Right?
Yeah.
You will hear some women promoting it. No, we agree. It would increase promiscuity. You hear women saying all sorts, right? But clearly, this is a power issue. It's a clear power issue. So when it gets to things like this, we throw up religion. We throw up culture. Just to cover it. Right? So what of men that also promiscuous? So what do you do to them? How do you checkmate that? So you have had a gain. We are hoping that because most likely from what the discussion so far, we're hoping that the president would refuse assent to it, right? And we hope the international community would put pressure. So these are kind of things we would want the international community to put pressure, right?
Yeah.
So put pressure on the Gambia, including our president, who is the leader of ECOWAS.
Yeah.
So from ECOWAS perspective, so I think these are common things that we share in ECOWAS. So I think we're in agreement to that we should stop FGM. We are in agreement in that.
Why is it in 2024? I find it very outlandish. I find it very shocking that in 2024, this is the conversation we are having
To
to
upturn a law.
upturn a ban on something so horrendous.
Yeah, so that is the thing. Sometimes in countries like ours, Gambia, Nigeria, some issues you focus on are mundane issues. Or instead of you to channel that energy to look at how do we increase investment in the Gambia, how do we increase the level of reduce the level of poverty in the Gambia. So those kind of practical things that are like real germane and affects people, more people's lives. You are going back to this. So they do not have research, they do not have evidence. So there are global researches and evidence that shows that FGM is of no benefit.
True.
None, zero. So you are going back. So it's because you are not busy. Somebody just wakes up and just starts passing one law. There are some laws like that have happened in Nigeria. We can give you a couple of examples. But clearly, we are hoping that we have got ActionAid Gambia. So and they're in the forefront in fighting this. So we are hoping that the fight at the end of the day, we're able to push this down. That is where the power of the people lies. And that is where we need to differentiate between people's rights and religion. So sometimes it's easy to use religion as
To mask it.
to mask things like, oh, religion. So once your pastor says, once your imam says, but sometimes we've got common sense. So we could even reason, what does God say? So if God has done it that way, why is man trying to now reverse it?
Reverse it, yeah.
Right? So what does God say regarding this? So clearly, we're hoping that it doesn't pass through. Of course, these are things that are barbaric, that are supposed to. And the thing is, we've had traction, we've had a gain. Then you are now going to
And you
reverse
want to
again
pull the whole.
because somebody or some people
back.
just came to parliament and just thought that no, this. So women can rally round, and be able to push this. Because why I said yes and no is you also have men. So if people like me, if I'm in that parliament, I will fight it with my blood. If I'm in that kind of parliament, I will fight it. So I don't have to be a woman. I understand it. So, but there are some women that do not understand it and will still go and support it. So the question is, who are those that are supporting it? Who are those that are for it? And how do you get more people? I know there's a level of country independence and all that. But clearly this is against all known international laws and standards. Yes.
Okay, so still talking about women's rights. I would want you to speak for the DevNow audience. I know ActionAid did a program, I can't remember how many years it is, but you provide more context to it. And it will shock you, Ugonna, to know that there were communities, I don't know if there still are more, they would know. There were communities in Nigeria where women could not own landed property until ActionAid and their partners stepped in. So maybe you want to speak to that as well.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay. I'm
You know, Ugonna is posh.
No.
Lives.
I have heard of such instances. I mean, we hear of people women who can't even rent a house because they're women. They always ask you who's your father or where's your husband, but I always felt this was, I'm going to admit my privilege.
You thought it doesn't happen again?
Yeah, maybe just a small section, right? So I am quite alarmed to hear that until ActionAid basically came to their aid.
Okay, so I'm assuming you're from southeast Nigeria.
Yes, I'm Imo State.
Okay, great. Yeah. So this practice is more dominant in the southeast part of Nigeria. It's very common, where women cannot. There's this lady, late Justice Obi-Wankwo, a justice. She grew to the highest level, almost becoming Chief Justice in the States. And of course, she wanted to buy land at some point. And they said she cannot buy in Enugu.
What year was this?
No, this was like...
okay.
This is not even about inheriting land. No. Inheriting land, I know of that one being a problem. Yeah. But to buy...
Yeah, they said she could not buy. This was like 15, 17 years ago. So she could not buy. Like, why? They say, Madam, they now went to meet her. Madam, do you have a son? By then her husband was late. Do you have a son?
Oh my God.
She had to bring her son that was less than 18
to buy it in his
buy
name.
to buy it in his name. She paid the money and used the sons. So this house, she said, this house, I had to.
So if her son decides one day, I don't like you, mom, get out. That's about.
So that's it. So those are the practices that we are looking at. So currently we are designing a new strategy, and land ownership is a big issue. What is a very ambitious strategy for the next 10 years. So land ownership, particularly for housing and also for farming. Even women, to get land for farming, you have to rent. You have to pay so much. You have to rent from the men. So sometimes they have the resource to then buy. They are not able to buy. Yeah. And if they are not able to buy, it affects the level of farming there. Yeah. So it keeps being at subsistence level. But if they want to expand, it gets it more difficult. So the land use, from the Land Use Act to the policy to state government's engagement and intervention. So these are all spectrums that you need to deal with to be able to respond to those. Then finally to the community level. So there are community norms and cultures that sometimes, the chief is the one that allocates land, or the Igwe or some council is the one that allocates land, and like, you can allocate land. So sometimes they have to speak to them. We live in a patriarchal society. I don't know.
Yes,
not
we
away
do.
from
Yeah,
it.
we do.
So it's a patriarchal society.
I know.
You know we do.
So in a patriarchal, sure. I know. I'm telling you, we live in a patriarchal society.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a very funny example. We worked in Cross River some years ago during Obasanjo's time, and in Cross River, men farm yam, while women farm cassava.
Okay.
Why? Yes. So yam is more commercial. So more yam gives you more resources, more money and all that than cassava. So cassava then was cheap and all that. So there was this particular year Obasanjo was promoting whole cassava thing, cassava bread, cassava this, cassava that.
Let me guess.
And cassava was now scarce or something. Then cassava price went up. What, like times 3 price of yam. Guess what? Next year, the men said, no, we have to switch. No, women, you go and farm yam. So now, men, we farm cassava.
No.
So they did that.
No way.
Then a lot of people entered cassava that year. The following year, the Pasakalo Prover crashed. The year that men entered cassava.
We want our yam back.
They now went and said, we want our yam back. Go back to your cassava. So that is a patriarchal society. That's a classical example. It happened in Cross River. A classical example of how the patriarchal nature of our living affects men and women. But clearly, these issues, I don't think it's only about men and women. It's about the society. A clear example we normally give is, you want to do a 100-meter race, right? And you are competing with others. Nigeria is competing on one state, competing with others. Then you now tie one of your leg.
And you want to run.
With
those who their two legs are
who the two legs are free. So allow the men and women equal space. Let your two legs function. If we have a 50-50 population.
Is that patriarchy is not sustainable in this global climate that we're facing. It's like with the economy, with the way things are getting more expensive. Do you think patriarchy is sustainable?
So patriarchy, first of all, patriarchy has got to give way. We need to recognize that, right? It's not a good thing, right? So it's got to give way. So, and it's got to be dealt with at various levels, from policy level to even to family, to community, to family level. So it's got to give way, from the way you train your children. So like, you wash plates, you wash car, you when you want to buy toy, you buy gun, aeroplane for the boy, and you buy a doll baby
for the girl.
What are you telling the girl? The girl, you should domesticate her, exactly. So you cook. Women, you be in the kitchen. Or you see a man in the kitchen. When I was growing up, my mom, whenever I'm in the kitchen, what are you doing in the kitchen? Leave here. I learned how to cook somehow. I don't know how I learned, but I learned how to cook, and I cook very well. But clearly,
not just Indomie and
no.
Some of us cook properly.
I can make oha soup. I can make ogbono. I can make vegetable soup.
I believe him.
Yes, I can.
Reason.
So you don't believe
I honestly doubt it.
Okay, but clearly, that is from family level to community level to it is a whole lot. But patriarchy we've got to deal with it and allow. So I was fortunate to be the PTA chair in my kids' school. And when I was leaving, of course, we had like 2 men trying to succeed me, and I was a woman, and of course, I put my weight behind the woman. So one of them came to meet me. How can you? I disgrace to men. I said, yeah. I said, I've got 2 girls in this school. I said, I want to leave an example. Because before then, we have never had a female PTA chair. And I said, I'm going to change that. I told them that, and I said, I promise you. So when he told me that, I said, sir, I'm going to work against you. I told him, when he just told me I'm a disgrace to man, I said, sir, thank you very much. I'm going to work against you. And I made sure I worked against him, and the lady won.
Good.
Do you understand?
Good,
clearly,
good.
I said I'm doing this I'm laying example for my kids, my daughter.
Yeah.
I've got a son also as well, but I've got laying this for example for my daughter, so she sees that, oh, I can be this, I can be that. That's an example.
Yeah.
So we should. Why would a lady grow up and know that? Oh, I cannot be the governor in my state. A lady should grow up and know that I can also be the governor in my state.
Yeah.
So we should have those kind of examples. So patriarchy is something that we've got to deal with. However, one part of your question, the level of poverty we have, it's both a cause and effect. The level of poverty we have further increases the level of patriarchy. So a man that is not too easy. A man that is poor will most likely be more patriarchal. Right? That does not mean that rich people are not patriarchal, right? It's a mentality. But if you are looking at a scale of 50-50, but more people will be more patriarchal. So that's when you insist that, no, you must pound my yam for me. You must do this. You're coming back. Your wife must
say you must kneel down to
you must kneel down and serve me. All those mentality. But if someone that has basic education, because education helps to clear some of those mentality.
It does.
For some people, not for everybody.
But for
some of them, there are some that
they just remain adamant.
They still remain the way they are.
Yeah.
But it helps to create eliminate some of those mentality. So in some ways, yes, it's a cause and also an effect. Yes.
Sorry, I was going to ask a question about women in politics again. I'm sorry to bring it back again. Sorry, I'm going to keep bringing because it's important to me.
Yeah, it is important.
So this is a personal experience. There was a guest, I wouldn't call him a family friend, but quite familiar with the family. And he walked up to me, this is a few months ago, and he said to me, he says, Ada, one day you got back politics, or meaning you enter politics one day. I was like, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, one day I'll be your governor, I might even be your president. I was just talking. I didn't mean any of that. And he said to me, he says, no, Igaga state house, then House of Rep, then Senate, and
then you
so basically he's saying that you go to State House of Assembly,
House of Rep,
Federal House, and then Senate. So it feels like women can only be legislators. They can never be in the executive. Why is that the mentality we have here in Nigeria? Because I was like, why? It's like, you're okay with me possibly becoming a senator someday, possibly becoming a House of Rep member or a state house of a state member of the assembly.
Not a governor.
But why not a governor? He says, that that's why he said it. They don't let women become the overall leaders, basically, like a governor, who can sign bills and stuff like that. And he says, because women will start misbehaving. That's the way he says it. What do you think about that?
So, and this is a woman?
No, this is a man saying this to me.
Oh, it's a man. Okay. Okay, so I think it's still...
And there are women that probably share that view with him.
Yeah. It still boils down to the patriarchal society we live in. And we have further reinforced it by all the examples we have seen. Secondly, politics is expensive. I did a thesis, master's thesis on campaign financing, women participation on campaign financing. In Nigeria.
Okay.
And forget the amounts that they tell you. Forget the INEC
official figures.
Trust me.
Forget those figures.
The
amounts you need to be a governor. So, how many women have that figure, have that amount, right? Or have the resources to back them?
I thought you were going to mention the amounts. At least a band, not band A, band E but
one thing I would say
band
is that when running for office in Nigeria, it's very different. across the regions. So running for office in the north, I can tell you, is way cheaper than running for office in the southeast. I think it's a cultural thing, because I feel like in the north, they have a certain unity based on one leader just takes someone's hands and says, this is our person, and everybody follows. But maybe in the southeast or southwest, everybody is more like a lion. Everybody wants to be king. Do you understand? So you can have 4 heavyweights in one primary for maybe an APC or PDP ticket, unlike in the north. So that already makes it more expensive. And then when you start talking about women getting involved. So for example, if you wanted to run for governor in the southeast, you cannot hold less than 2-3 billion. I'm not joking.
So for presidency,
don't even go there.
for presidency, you would be spending upward of 200 billion.
Yes.
Upward of 200 billion. I had conversations with
deep conversations.
The financial officers of some presidential campaign, top presidential campaign. Heart-to-heart conversation. I'm not going to mention parties.
Of course.
Right?
So we can tell us
governors,
later.
Off. Away from DevNow.
Away from DevNow.
Shout out to
I
you.
had conversation with, same thing with, for governors, a couple of governors and all that. I had conversation with them, and clearly, so these further keeps women away from politics. So clearly. So even the practices, the party structure. Do you have any female party leader?
No, we have women leaders.
The chairman of the party. Do you have anyone as a man?
No. At least not as
no. So they give welfare. They give a welfare. They give women leader.
Women leader. You never. It's true.
That's
it's true.
most likely.
Right. So those are the things they do. So, and these are the people that determine. So, and when you say the leaders of the party, they have their meetings around 2 a.m.
Sure.
Some men will not allow their wife to go out at 2 a.m.
Yes, it's true.
So that's already a factor. So they limit you. So they work at night, and the wife will like, "Oh, are you able to do all these things we do?" But why can't a woman even do that? If your husband, if it's me, I will allow my wife, right?
Same here.
So I will allow my wife go.
I believe both of you.
Right?
Yeah.
But why can't the woman also again? The whole patriarchal nature, they see we objectify women. We see like, oh, you are good to be slept with.
Yeah.
You want to sleep with the woman, right? So why can't you just have your normal engagement and interaction with her without thinking of that? I know that yes, men are wired too, but can you not focus and do your work and say, okay, I see this as person as a colleague, the same way I see you.
Can't you just rewire yourself?
I mean, you can rewire yourself, because you wouldn't look at your mom or your sister
exactly
and say, oh yeah. I mean, your mom could be beautiful, doesn't mean you are attractive.
Exactly, cannot be exactly.
You
So
realize in that moment that she's your mother.
Exactly. So this is my colleague. I recognize that you are my colleague, and I see you at that. And we leave it at that. So those limitations, and that's why I say, oh, women cannot go this, so you cannot go deep. Women in politics is risky. There's also the risky part. Politics can be dirty.
Very dirty.
So it can be dirty. So it can be the whole issue around the security, assassinations, all of those. So as if there's an assassination, a man can defend himself more than a woman. I don't understand that though. So, but clearly, the environment, the system, the whole ecosystem is designed to keep women away from politics.
Some people say that women can't take hard decisions. That's our nurturing nature. So, for example, if we were to press a button that would maybe bomb some terrorist camp, and they feel like, oh, women might not do that, or women might not take hard.
Have you heard of Margaret Thatcher?
No, I know. I don't believe that. I'm saying this for. I'm actually some of these questions are for the viewers, right?
Yes.
They say women are we're too nurturing, right? Yeah. We breastfeed. We're too emotional, or sometimes we're too emotional with our decisions. Yeah. They think, oh, I don't like this person, so definitely, would do something. But
okay, so let me put myself on the spot for the DevNow audience. Mm-hmm. You talked about a woman, let's say, holding the football. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know what the football is, it's that briefcase you see with the American president, mm-hmm, where all the nukes are, and he can issue a strike from anywhere in the world. If the nuke were to be kept in my house, my family, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, whoever holds the nuke is the person that's going to authorize the strike. Mm-hmm. It'll be with my wife. Mm. That's me putting myself on the spot. Yeah. It will be with my wife. I don't think I have the mind.
Is your wife who has the mind
to issue in
To be fair,
strike.
I've seen
But
seen
my
her
wife
eyes.
will
She
issue.
looks like she
Shout
could.
out to you, baby. She will issue that strike and say, "Give me pounded yam afterwards."
So she's not even going to start
And
crying
she's
about
not
the
even
people
going
who
to
lost
bat
their
an
limbs.
eyelid. But me, I was like, "Oh my God, no, the nuke! You have to kill people." So it's not a gender thing. It's just a
Yeah.
stereotype.
Yeah, I think it's a personality thing, but maybe more women tend to fall into that category. But what do you do? So I'll give you an example. I'm the country director of ActionAid. I know my personality, and I know my limitations as well. So I'm the person that can take very hard decisions. So I can fire you on the spot. But I've got other senior management team members that can say, Andrew, calm down. Hold on. Let's do this. Let's do that. I'll say, okay, I'll be holding on. It will be paining me. I'll just be holding on. But these people try to balance me.
Yeah.
So that a woman has that. That's why you have a vice president. That's why you have a cabinet.
So you have
yes, you have the
advisors.
ultimate. You have advisors.
Yeah.
So the ultimate decision lies on you. But it's about governance. So you listen. Right? You listen to others. So that is not an excuse. Because if you go by that, there are several women that are ruling in the world today.
Yeah.
Prime ministers, presidents, ruling very
Heads
well,
of
including
industries.
in Africa.
Yeah.
So you cannot now say, oh, it's only in Europe and all that. But we need to we need to show that trend. We need to show that movement, that improvement. And I think that's where today we are doing this, tomorrow we are here. You appoint ministers, how many women? So today we're here, tomorrow you go down. Let's be consistent. Rwanda were deliberate. They made a policy around that. And that is why we took 3 bills to the National Assembly. So the whole Occupy NAS that we did, that was last year or so. Yeah, last year.
Yeah.
Women blocked that whole. ActionAid was involved in that whole process.
So maybe you want to talk about those
Yeah.
3 bills properly. For the DevNow audience, we know, but we want them to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope I remember them. So
Even if you can't remember the names, at least the popular names.
No, so-
Every
so-
bill has a popular name.
yeah, so we were looking at the issue of having one senator, for instance, across each of the states, one additional seats reserved for women. There are pros and cons around it. So we know that. So with that, you are sure that a minimum of 25% is guaranteed. The other 3 slots will be fought by both men and women. But so if you do one Senate, one seat so you know that 1/4, that means you have guaranteed 25%.
Sure.
For women, House of Rep and also the same thing, right? And there are pros and cons. The cons, let me start with the cons, the negative. There's a tendency that men will then start saying, oh, you now have your seat for women.
So leave
These
the other
3,
2.
leave it for us.
Yeah.
So automatically you exclude women. But women that have always been in the game would go and do that. That's one. The second one is, oh, you want to create super senators. Don't forget that senators are from a district. So a state is divided into 3 zones.
Yeah.
So this one person, where would he come from? Where she come from? Right? So she will not come from the whole state will not vote for that person. You are a super senator. Because you are you had more people voting for you as a woman. So those are the things that came against it and all that. But there are places where this has been practiced. Yeah. But the positive is it gives us a launching pad. It gives us that equal representation. There was also the issue of, it's going to increase cost of governance. You will not create additional senator. You are saying cost of governance is already high. This is not what will make it higher. The cost of governance is already high. So what we are saying is equity. We're dealing with equity here. We're dealing with a major challenge. So if we have to put more budget to deal with this issue, let's put more budget to deal with it. That is the response to that. It is about bringing more women's voices into governance. So it was same at the state level and all of that. So we said, okay, let's do this across board. And of course, Kachaka Society rejected it. The second one was with the issue of leadership of House of Rep. Appointments and all of that as well. Having a quota set aside for women. So same thing applied. And it was countries that have done it. See Rwanda. Rwanda is a shining example. Everything in Rwanda. Go there today. They are doing very well. Their tourism has increased drastically.
Yeah.
Well, clearly, so when we say these things, it's not about the now. It's not about you. So people are it's like I said, patriarchal society. People are patriarchal. People are looking at their self, their gain. Oh, it will knock me out of politics. It will knock me. It will affect us. It will affect us in this way. But nobody says to look at it and say, okay, in 2020, in 20 years, in 5 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, how will this impact on Nigeria? How will this change Nigeria? How will this affect Nigeria's image? How would it affect the development space in Nigeria? Would it improve Nigeria eventually? Does it mean that these women, you are sure that once they come in there, they will be different, or they would challenge corruption, they would deal with all those root causes of poverty that we have? Maybe not. But it means that we have more voices of women there. It means that you have more allies to talk and deal with women's issue. It means that in places like Gambia, you can prick the conscience of those kind of women to say, this is bad against women. Those will be your first ally you are going to be trying to move away from. If they were on the other side, move them to this side to challenge that kind of a bill. So those are the kind of things you want to look at. So if it means that, like you said, yes, so you breastfeed baby, it's good to breastfeed baby. So it means that a woman in taking decision will think, how will this affect the children? Because you are more compassionate and thinking about those kind of things, right? Than a man that will be thinking of. The man will probably be thinking of naira and kobo, 1 naira, 2 naira, 3 naira, 5 naira, 1 million, 1 billion, and all that. But the woman will like, okay, this is life. Lives of people are at stake here. What do we do to make sure that it's positive on the lives of people more than the naira and kobo benefits at the end of the day? So for me, those are the issues around it. Yeah.
Okay, now let's go deeper. I know there's no way you talk about ActionAid and all of these things and more won't come up. So ActionAid plays in a lot of thematic areas. That's not something you see with a lot of development agencies. I mean, ActionAid plays in education, you play in the civic space. I mean, for those who have been watching, you could pick those things from all he's been saying. You are in the gender space. I mean, it's a lot. Environment, and environment is really broad. Yeah. How are you? And when I say you, I mean ActionAid now. How are you able to? Let me use the Nigerian lingo. How are you able to German all of these things together? For some, you just see maybe one. They just stay there. Some 2, some maybe 3. But ActionAid is like, so are you able to German this thing?
Yeah, thank you very much. So even recently, we've been asking ourselves, should we focus and streamline and reduce things that we do? In the last strategy, we tried streamlining. We're not so big on things like education and health, but we're big on issues of agric, governance, conflicts and human security, and women's rights. So we're big in these 4 areas, right? And for us, the pink point is poverty. So how do all of these contribute to eradicating poverty? So women's rights for us is key. If you are able to respond to issues of women's rights, including economic empowerment for women, right, and able to deal with those, and because more women live in poverty than men in terms of statistics. So if you're able to deal with that, you get a greater number of people out of poverty. For agric, we are able to work with, for instance, one of our biggest work is with the smallholder women farmers. We call them SWOFON. SWOFON, we started SWOFON with some smallholder women farmers. There was a few of them. And that was like 7-8 years ago. Yeah. And today they have 2 million members.
2 million
plus.
Wow.
Database statistics, their names, everything.
Verifiable human beings.
Across the 36 states and FCT. Now, these are women that have small farming here and there, that are together from poultry to subsistence farm and all that. So, spread across the country. What do? We pull them together and we support them to form cooperatives, right? So with these cooperatives, they are able to put their resources together, get bigger land. They're able to come together and demand for fertilizer. They're able to come together and get loan, and they're able to come together and produce more things and support themselves to transport their things, and in some ways begin to eliminate the middlemen you know, the middlemen, and one of the major reasons why the cost of this food is high. There are two things. Okay, maybe three. There's the subsistence things. Oh, sorry, the input, farm inputs, and all of that's required. The security also tied to that. So security is a different thing. I'm going to come to that. So the subsistence part of it that allows you to farm, production, and all of that. Then there is the transportation, where the whole middlemen come to play. Then there's the infrastructure within that whole system. So from the policeman that collects, so some of them count up to 30, 40 people they have to pay for them to move farm produce from Owerri or from this place in Imo to Abuja. They have to pay like 20, 30 checkpoints. And those things are built into the cost of production of the food you are going to buy, right? So clearly, that whole value chain, we're able to look at, okay, how can women play a role in this value chain, and you minimize the costs of the end products, and also increase the income that the farmers also get, and that way they expand. So we have seen them expanding, doing well. You train them on agroecology. So I'll talk a bit about agroecology. For us, agroecology is the alternative and natural way of farming, better than industrial agriculture. Industrial agriculture is not the same thing as mechanized farming. Okay. So mechanized farming, so agroecology still uses your tractor, your farm inputs, all your tillers and all of that. You still use them, right? Even for agroecology. But the mechanized farming is heavy on using things that are not natural. Even your fertilizer, your pesticides, and all of those are categorized as what do you call industrial farming. I'll give you a simple example. Europe rejects most of our beans, some of our produce. Yeah. And one of the reasons they give is that it's high in content of what they call insecticides and all of those, pesticides and all of those, pesticides and all of that. It's high in content in pesticides. And guess what? Most of our pesticides are imported from Europe. So they sell the pesticide to you, you produce with them, and they say, sorry, you cannot bring this into our country. It does not pass our standard. So that is it. But there are natural ways of dealing with this. And I've gone to farms where they demonstrate it. They have onion, mixed onion, pepper, garlic, and some things, and they spray their farm. These are natural. So it's alternative. So this is what agroecology does. Of course, we all, in agri, they all taught us how to use dung, how to use your things from some of the things from the restaurants here. Yeah. You can put them in a manure form and use compost and use them for your farm. So those are natural ways, and the soil is better off than the use of fertilizers and chemicals and all that. So chemicals is the second highest contributor. Those chemicals are the second highest contributor to climate change, to global emission. Do you understand? Yeah. So the second highest contributor to global emission. So clearly, those things, those farmers, they learn better ways of farming, and they challenge those people that use industrial ways of farming that are against the environment. It's not friendly to the environment. So we're looking at how do we create. So climate justice is also a major area for us as well. So that's for agriculture, and yes. So climate justice. Let me talk about climate justice. So climate justice, we currently are working on a campaign called Fund Our Future. So what does Fund Our Future says? It says that put money in things that are climate friendly. So the banks of the world, so for instance, there was a survey we did globally, and we discovered that 64 bank, HSBC, Citibank, and two other banks, they contributed as much as $20 billion in a space of how many years to loans to loans to organizations like Shell and Chevron, all the oil companies and all that. And these monies are fossil fuel.
Yeah.
Fossil fuel is a heavy contributor to global emission. Heavy contribution to global emission. And when fossil fuel, of course, it damages the environment. But what do you do? What is the alternative to those fossil fuel? Why don't you fund sustainable energy? And they're in the Paris conference that was had on climate justice, there was an agreement that there will be drastic movement, transition from funding those fossil fuel to funding sustainable energy. So, but that's not what we're seeing, and this is leading to more climate. So, Nigeria, we're looking at, okay, Nigeria, if we're saying stop funding fossil fuel, our major source of income, foreign earning is where? Is oil. What do you do? So, what we are saying as ActionAid, we are saying, okay, we recognize that oil is our mainstay, but we have to have a clear plan, transition plan. But we're not seeing that transition plan to say, okay, if oil stops today, how do we survive? If oil stops today, dollar will be, I'm sure, 10,000 naira to.
Let's not even think about it.
10,000 naira to $1. So, but how do you transition, basically? So that's what we're saying. But we need to then have that clear transition plan. One of the biggest area of interest for me is as ActionAid is the Lake Chad Basin. I don't know if you know so much about the Lake Chad. Let me tell you a bit about it. So it's an area we are entering into very well. The Lake Chad Basin borders 4 countries, right? Nigeria being one of them.
Yeah.
And the Lake Chad has shrunk by 80%.
What?
Yes.
Over what period of time, sir?
In the last 20 years. It has shrunk by 80%. Now, this is
This is more like a pond.
This is what provides livelihood for over 30 million persons. Yes. So the farmer headers crisis you're talking about is one of the resultant effects is the shrinking of the Lake Chad. And now this is the international dimension to it.
Yeah.
The international dimension in it is that Nigeria and Africa, the global south, we contribute less than 3% to global emission.
Less than 3%.
Less than 3%. So even with our fossil fuel and all that, we contribute less than 3%. So China, America, and all that, they are the ones that contribute 97%. But the effect is felt more in places like Africa, in Nigeria. That is what is being shown or demonstrated in the Lake Chad. That's what is manifesting in the Lake Chad.
True.
So the Lake Chad shrinking and shrinking and shrinking is what is happening in China, what is happening in the US. Those huge chemicals and all that at the point you see, the emissions and all of that, those are the things that are causing the Lake Chad to shrink. And that is what has fueled the Boko Haram crisis. That has had what has made a lot of people. And there's a solution.
I was going to say, what could be the solution?
So the solution to it is, there have been a lot of analysis and survey. The solution to it is, how do you recharge the Lake Chad? It's a huge project. There are about 2 or 3 rivers that you can use to recharge Lake Chad far away. One of them is the Namibia River.
Okay.
But it will cost, initially it was costed at about $15 billion to recharge it, right? But it has increased to almost 30 between the range of 30
today's price is
billion.
not today's price.
Yeah, but so one of the major increase is the whole insecurity. So you have to build an army to provide security cover to be able to carry on that project. And it's not a 2 years project. You understand? So it's a 7, 8, 10 years project to be able to do that. So you fuel it, and of course you then have to sustain it. But guess what? When you do that, you provide livelihood for over 20 million persons. Of that 20 million, over 8 to 10 million will be from Nigeria. Now, the conversation we are having at the international community is to say, guys, you guys can contribute to this. The G8 from the UK to the to US to China, all of that. And we are not saying contribute as loan.
I mean, it's your fault.
Because it's your fault.
It's
So
your fault.
we're not saying contribute as loan. We are saying as grants.
Reparation.
So we're saying, but again, there has to be value for money, because the truth is, again, if you don't do this, there's a lot of migration. People are leaving that place. People will find their way to your countries. The amount you are using to police your borders, stop all these things,
It
and
will
all
increase.
that, it will increase. People will find their way. People will find their way and still enter
So
your
the
country.
question,
I mean, we've seen people being stuck to the rudder of a ship, trying to.
Exactly. You see different all sorts.
So now, sincerely, to the DevNow audience, the body, I have to use body language now, with what you've said. And Lakeshad is just one of several others. I mean, I recall the last, no, it wasn't COP, the one before COP, where President William Ruto was pushing for this as well, that, hey, the West, you guys caused this thing. We're the ones bearing the brunt. You people need to put X amount. Go and talk to yourselves and put X amount down, because it's not our fault. And he's just confirmed that. So now, with the body language of the West, do you think, sincerely, do you think this is going to happen?
Okay. Yes and no. Let me tell you. Okay, so yes and no.
You plan on going into politics?
No.
Because that yes and no answer.
That yes and no
The
answer.
yes aspect and the no aspect.
Let me talk
But
like a Gen Z is giving politics.
Okay. So the yes aspect is, I've had conversation with a few high commissioners and ambassadors.
Yeah.
I've had conversation with those kind of persons in Nigeria. And what they say is, oh, Andrew, this is possible. What you're saying is correct, and this is possible. And we are willing to talk to our government to start this. However, two things. One is, we need to see that political will from the countries. So the good thing is, our president is the president of ECOWAS, and of course we are. What are the other countries? Niger, Cameroon, and what's the third one? So that are the countries. So Nigeria, I call them to the meetings. Please, can you fly to Abuja now?
Come to Abuja.
So sometimes, even those days, I heard that President Obasanjo, when he's going for meeting, AU meeting, he will fly, go to Ghana with his private jet, pick this person, pick this person, pick this person.
I say, let's go.
Let's go. Just carry them.
Along, yes, they went along.
Carry them to the meeting. So, and he had control over them, right? And then when he comes back, they will come. First of all, come and drop him in Nigeria. Then they will not go and drop on that.
Yeah, making a statement.
Yeah. So, that's what used to happen those days when Obasanjo was. I don't know if it still happens now. So what I'm saying is, the president can summon them to a meeting. But the president of Nigeria needs to be the face and take ownership.
That's that political will.
That political will. And take ownership in driving this. So, for instance, he needs to pull together a conference on this and sell this agenda. He could do it in conjunction with France or with UK or with the US government in a foreign land, and bring them together and say, guys, we need commitment. So UK say, and you know what, for us, on the second part of the political will is, as Nigeria and the other four countries, we will raise 10 billion. Then you guys, dollars, yes, you guys will raise the balance. So UK, and it's not, we're not saying give it to us in 1 year. It's in space of 7, 8 years, 10 years. If in one swift, you can approve almost $200 million for the Israeli fight, or $200 million for the what's the other one? Russia-Ukraine fight.
Yeah, Russia.
Right? In one swift, you approve those. One off. To fight, for that kill more people. But we are saying that Yeah, so but we're saying that. Sorry, I'm not a diplomat, so I really wish I can be a diplomat.
No,
so
we-
speaking
we-
more
you don't
diplomatic
need to
man.
be a diplomat.
We're
Because-
feeling you. I'm
because-
sure the
We're
Gen Z
feeling
will love you.
we
The
love
Gen Z's
we
following
love
DevNow will
everything
love you
about
because you hit it.
Please keep
Because-
spitting fire.
because the truth is that these people are also going to watch. Some of them are also watching like, oh, this
Yeah.
guy is too raw.
As it should be.
Yeah, but okay, but clearly. So imagine the 20 million persons that will be moved away from poverty. Fishes we have to have a lot of people fishing in those lakes, people, construction, a lot of activities were happening around there. All of a sudden,
Boom.
all of a sudden, then so all the what do you call them, the headers moving away from them. That's why you have, of course, they will pass through the farms. That's why you have the farmer header crisis. That's one of the root causes of it. So when I say governance and development, that is it. So you need to recognize what is the root cause. So that's a major root cause. If you deal with that, then the headers will be more around there. There will be less movements and all that. There will be a lot of irrigation for farmings around there.
Yeah.
There will be a lot of food production. There will be a lot of exports. There will be a lot of, it will improve the GDP. But sometimes you can't think, okay, why is this not happening? So if they come together and then pull those resources together and say, okay, we're going to do this. And the second point, I told you 2 points. The first one was political will. The second one was, how are we sure that we put these resources down?
I will not.
Ah.
I will not.
It will not develop wings.
Yeah. We're very sure. One of them told me, say, Andrew, we don't have a problem. We can raise this. We can do this and all that. I say, but we don't have a trust.
Wait,
that
money dey now.
we put the money down, that it will not grow wings. And that 20% or 50% of it is not accounted for.
Country director,
So-
actually off your mic.
So,
Off your mic.
No, off your mic. Continue.
So how are we sure? So we're like, okay, we're looking at models. Like, okay, you guys can set up a team. Like, no, that is against sovereignty of your nation.
Yeah, that's like encroachment.
You understand? So you should be able to deal with that. Like, well, we can have a model. We can set up a team that is managed by. We can set up a team managed by our country. So imagine somebody like what's his name, the African Development Bank.
Additional. Additional.
Yeah, additional. Heading that kind of
Championing
a
it.
team. Championing it. He's the head of the team.
Because he's Mr. Africa.
You understand? So championing that team, he set up a team that's managing it cross country. You have World Bank in that team, you have EU, you have AU, everybody in that team and all that. But there's an implementation. There's something like a Shegun additional, Akinwumi additional, championing that and managing that project for the next 10 years. His tenure in World Bank is almost in African Development Bank is almost back over. Maybe in the next 1 year or so it will be over. So if it's over, he comes and handles this as a project. It's a massive project. A massive project. So for us, when we say we want to contribute to lifting people out of poverty, this is the kind of thing we
Yeah,
want to
because
do.
you definitely would employ
Yeah.
people to do this.
So if you do that, so ours is, there was a time we had a Jubilee campaign, the whole debt cancellation. We worked closely with with Ngozi Kunjewela. So we were championing civil society, putting pressure on the international community to cancel the debt, and it worked. 18 billion was cancelled for Nigeria.
Yeah, we recall.
Yeah, 18 billion was cancelled. So now this is for a different cause, and we are ready. We are mobilizing. We have civil society at our back. For us, ActionAid, when we have footprint in 72 countries. All the 72 countries are backing us, Nigeria, to be able to mobilize civil society to do this. We have other civil society organizations. ActionAid is just one that is going to put pressure on the international community and holding our government accountable to ensure that the resources is well utilized. Yeah, so those for us, those are the issues around what we do and how they cross-cut and how they link to poverty. Yeah.
Nice. Now, I love what you said, because we're gradually, rounding off. When you start rounding off, there's a coalition of civil society. I know ActionAid is usually at the forefront. I may be wrong, but on TV, that's what the DevNow audience know for now, except you say otherwise. How do you coordinate that? How do you and maybe tell us just a little bit about the impact? Is it possible? Just a little bit.
Okay, I will try and be.
That's what I'm saying. Just a little bit, because we really need to round off now.
I'll try and be brief now. Okay, so we believe that poverty can be eradicated by not just one person, by collective of citizens. So is working with the poor. Our mission is working with the poor and marginalized. So it's that number. We need that collective, that number, to be able to respond to this. So from election work to education work to agri work, we have movements, we have networks, we have coalitions that ActionAid is part of. Some cases we facilitate the emergence of those.
Yeah.
So we're just one out of all of them. And we're happy to work with them to respond to these issues. So from fuel issues and all that. But one thing I'll drop, Nigerians should watch out. We are putting together a movement like no other that will be able to be holding government accountable. We want to put a movement together that will have at least 15 to 20 million Nigerians. That once that movement speaks, the government will listen.
How soon do you think this is going to
between now and end of the year?
Oh, nice.
Between now and end of the year, we have started all the processes. We have some things already happening in the background. And they are not magics. I've told you we already have 2 million from so far.
Yeah.
There are groups like that we have common interests. What's
Would
our
you be
interest?
working with the NLC in any of this? Or?
At some point, we'll bring it in NLC.
Okay.
But that will be later points. We're not starting with NLC.
Okay.
Right? Because NLC is well established and all that, but we want to create our own. Then we're able to then go back to NLC. So some things will work with the NLC, sometimes we just work alone. But so these groups will come together and we're looking at issues of common interest. And one of them is poverty. So when you increase this, so SMEs, for instance, we have over 2 million, 3 million SMEs in this country. If they come into that group, right, and they're able to say, oh, this is our stand. So, and we'll be willing to engage governments from cooperation to confrontation, non-violent. From cooperation,
Non-violent.
from cooperation to confrontation.
Confrontation.
So imagine you put 2 million Nigerians on the streets, including young people who have youth movements too that are coming to this.
Yeah.
Imagine you put 2 million people on the street. They're like, oh, Andrew, they will shoot people. There's a limit to which they can shoot. I was speaking to people about the guy I was talking to about, I'll mention the name, about the Lake Chad and all that. I'm like, guys, you guys need to do something. The issue of corruption, governance, and we're speaking. I'm like, okay, and again, put people on the street. Like, well, right now we are conscious of collateral damage. People will die. You know what he told me? He said people will not die. He said how many people are kidnapped today? How many people were kidnapped yesterday? How many people were killed? How many people were killed as a result of bad governance from the hospital, from the bad road, from this? He gave me statistics. He said, yeah, if people die, 2, 3, 4 persons die, for instance, it shouldn't, we can avoid the casualty, but assuming they die, and we then get the end result, is that worth it? He said, if I were you, he said, would you be willing? I said, I'm willing to die for it, right? To make sure that Nigeria gets that cause. But clearly, we need to get our country right. We're willing to sit on the table, the cooperation, engage government the way we are talking. We do that. We sit down, for the social investment program at some point, we sat down with government in the design and all that. We do all of that. But also, when it comes to rolling up the streets and the sleeves, we also roll up the sleeves and come on the streets and tell government, this is what we want, this is how we want it. So we're able to engage from all spectrum, from cooperation to confrontation, but non-violent at every point in time.
Wow. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. This other question it's kind of rhetorical. Do you sleep at night?
Yeah, I sleep. If I don't sleep,
with all of these things that you're doing.
I sleep, but just that hours of sleep.
I have
to
just one more
limited.
question before we round up. I had a conversation with somebody a year ago, and he said to me, he says, what you don't understand, Ugonna, is that poverty must be maintained. That's what he says. He says he believes that all fingers are not equal. And especially in Nigeria where labor is cheap, it is cheap because poverty is abundant. So do you think, or what is your response to that? Are there people who are benefiting from the fact that poverty is abundant? Is our economy in some way, the fact that maybe if we lived abroad, maybe you wouldn't have a driver, maybe you don't have a security guard because you wouldn't even have a nanny because
labor is not
because
cheap.
labor is not cheap. If you wanted, nannies, I know some of my friends who went abroad for their masters or whatever, they made a living by being nannies. And when they tell me how much they're making, I'm like, I converted to naira. I'm like, oh, girl, if you were in Nigeria, you'd be you'd be balling. So, is there some? This might sound very outlandish. Is there some benefit to the poverty? Because there's some people who argue that.
Yeah, of course there is. It's a power relation.
Yeah.
So there are people that are benefiting, and there are people that are. I'll give you. And also, it's not just even a power relation thing. It's also a mindset. Even people that are poor, they believe that no, there are people that are meant to be poor. I'll give you a practical example. My first country director, he had a driver, and the driver, after 1-2 years, like, okay, his children were not going to school, and then he wanted to put them in school. So whenever he's going for a picnic and all that, he said, "Tell the driver, bring your children, let them play with my children." I'm like, no, like, we're not the same. You are here, I'm here. Like, put them to school. Like, what, Oga? He says it's like potato. You know those potatoes, the small ones, you put them under, then the big ones you put them on top. He said, we are the small ones. We are the ones that are meant to hold
up the big ones
up there. So that's our work. That's the way God has designed it. That's a mindset.
Yeah, it is.
And of course, it's just like patriarchy. The very rich, they take advantage of that, and they want to ensure that. But Nigeria is not going to get to a point where everybody's earning 1 million naira and all that. If you are being the poorest person, for instance, we still have huge population in abundance, and even if we get there, how are those countries, how are they surviving? So how are they surviving in the UK and the US? I can afford driver here. I can't afford it there.
Yeah, they drive themselves.
I can't afford it there. I might not even be driving myself. I might not have a need for a driver.
Yeah.
Because there will be a train system. There will be there will be a better transportation system that would work. I might not have a need for a nanny, because there will be more efficiency around the way we work and do things. You understand? So those things then come to play. Do it yourself comes to play easily. Yeah. So, but because
that's
we
a
are
nightmare
system,
for many Nigerians, though.
Yeah.
No nanny, no driver, do everything yourself. Like, no,
that is a nightmare for many Nigerians.
I have
what do you mean I'm going to do it myself?
I have practical experience, and it's difficult, right? But clearly, that shouldn't then be the reason why people should remain poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So give them basic things, and if you give them basic things, it doesn't mean that they will not. The nannies will still be able to be. They'll still be nannies, but they should be able to have access to food. 30,000 naira minimum wage. Please tell me.
Let's not even open that conversation.
When dollar
Thank you very much.
is 1,300.
Yeah. So in rounding off, I mean, we've had an expansive, explosive, exciting, inspiring conversation so far. In rounding off, and this one is 1 minute. Okay, no, 2 minutes. What else would you want the DevNow audience to know about ActionAid that we probably haven't spoken of? Maybe you want to throw in some numbers. I don't know.
Okay. So ActionAid, like you said, we currently work in about 27 states of Nigeria, and like I said, we're a member of 71 other countries, and what we have seen and done in Nigeria, we have seen change from micro level to macro level.
Yeah.
And one of the ways we have seen those change happen is Nigerians getting involved. The level of resilience in Nigeria is so big. It's both a positive and a negative.
Yeah.
So the positive things are, yes, it helps us to go past some of these things. But the negative part is, it just helps us to excuse so many things.
So it doesn't improve anything.
It doesn't improve anything. So they say if you push a goat to the wall,
it gets there.
It turns around and it bites. They say if you push a Nigerian to the wall, guess what? The Nigerian will bore a hole. No, we'll bore a hole in that wall and pass through. We'll find a way. So there's no light. What do you do? Buy generator. There's no water. What do? You drill your borehole. Yeah. The road is bad. You buy a jeep. So we'll find a response to everything. We don't try to come together and hold government accountable. So my last closing speech is, as Nigerians, we have a responsibility to this country. All of us cannot jackpot.
Nope.
Every one of us cannot leave the country.
Uganda cannot jackpot.
So if we cannot leave the country, then we have to make the country work. And how do we make the country work? We have to come together as citizens, support our government, and hold them accountable to get this country to work. We love our country. I'm sure even the government officials, they love the country. All right? And we have to all come together to get it to work. That is why your organization, what you are doing, is very fantastic. So bringing development organizations like ours to talk to Nigerians on what role they can play. So if you are listening to me, you're not playing that role. Like the last time, like, oh, the election was bad, I'm not going to vote again. That's not the response. The response is to go and mobilize more people and come out and vote again. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. It's been a
lot. It's been a lot here on Development Now today with Mr. Andrew Mamedu, the country director, ActionAid Nigeria. I want to say a very big thank you to you.
Thank you so much.
And also, I know by time to thank his partners now. Now we'll be here again, so we'll just get the logos of all the partners and slap them on the screen here.
To all our partners,
yes.
our donors, our partners. Thank you very much. I don't want to mention any names. I don't leave anyone.
Yeah, so I don't leave anyone out. So what we're going to do for ActionAid is we're going to get all of those logos from them, and then we're going to slap them on the screen.
I mean, here they are now.
If you don't now see your logo there, thank you so much.
Or if you want your logo to get there.
And of course, if you know any country director, executive director of an impactful organization like ActionAid, reach out to us. We'll be glad to have them here on Development Now. It's an open platform. We just want these issues out there. We want these success stories out there. If he probably didn't take out time from his busy schedule to be here with us today, you probably wouldn't know ActionAid is doing this much. You just see their logo and say, those NGO people, they gather together, they talk for long, they drink tea, and they share fat salaries. Yeah. That's the mindset you've had. Yeah. You know.
When we said fat salaries, she was like,
like actually, most of our work is even in rural communities. So you probably, if you're in urban cities, you're not. Where is actually? What are people even doing?
Yeah.
So we're in the rural, those poor.
Where it really matters.
Yeah, where it really matters. So again, I want to say big thank you to ActionAid, to all their partners, the sponsors, supporters, and what have you. And of course, we'll be back again with another exciting, explosive episode on Development Now. We'll keep bringing these impactful organizations on this platform so that you know what they're doing and you are able to also come on board. You're able to also be part of it, because that's the way development is. If you take the stats of all of the development organizations currently working in Nigeria, I'm not sure, I may be wrong. I mean, in terms of headcounts of their staffing, right? Maybe they don't form up to 1% of the whole country. Maybe.
No, we don't.
Yeah. So what can less than 1% do for a population that is about 200 million? Well, that's what we hear that we're about. So, we keep bringing them and we keep doing this over and over. Thank you again so much, sir, for coming through on Development Now. And we're going to...
Thank you again for joining us on Development Now. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Keep supporting us, keep liking, keep sharing. And of course, as Bumi says, if you know any organization that is doing impactful work, please, the contacts to reach us are down on the screen. Yep. Please reach out to us. We love to share the stories. Once again, thank you for listening. You're the reason we're doing this. We love you.